How many of you plan date nights with your partner? And how do they go? So many couples have date nights each week or each month, and I often hear that date nights end up leading to feelings of more disconnection rather than connection, and partners feeling disheartened because they put a lot of energy into creating these positive connection nights only to have things fall apart or feel more strained than before. So let's consider why this might happen. When we plan date nights, we so want it to go well that sometimes we can focus more on being nice than being authentic, maybe. And if there are things in the relationship that we haven't been talking about, maybe some underlying conflict or tension, we certainly don't want to bring those things up on date night unless we maybe have one too many drinks, because we all know that alcohol breaks down inhibitions, right? And then date night becomes an unintended battleground of sorts. Now, how many of us plan conflict date night? So to many people that would sound absurd, right? Why would anyone want to plan for conflict? But let's consider this. The fact is, in any partnership, there are going to be difficulties, different perspectives, maybe hurts or upset feelings that we have to navigate. And when we don't do that openly and intentionally, we build resentments. And those resentments then erupt during date nights. So I'll share a personal story. When my partner and I realized that our relationship was actually turning into a more significant partnership, I shared with him my experience working with couples of the main issues that so many couples argue about. I mentioned finances, sex, kids, chores and responsibilities, communication and trust, social time, and a few other things. And I said, what if we were to have a weekly check-in where we talked openly about things that we might be struggling with, where we intentionally practice talking about the difficult things? Now, I will be honest, he wasn't initially a fan of talking about things that he would normally just brush off as not a big deal. And he said, why would I bring things up that are conflictual when I could easily just let them go? And I shared that, number one, when we don't talk about those things, we don't usually let them go. They tend to build resentment and stories. And then later, those things can explode or come out sideways. And also, when he brings these smaller things to the table skillfully, that's the practice ground, so that later on, when the stakes are higher, he has some training under his belt. And I do too. Also, because it builds trust. I trust that I'm worth, and the relationship is worth him risking some discomfort to talk about the difficult things. Now, we've been committed to this practice that for us has evolved into what we call conflict date night for close to about 3 years. And we're both convinced that this is one of the most important things that we do for our relationship. It's definitely not always easy, but we always feel stronger together afterward. And we feel like we have the strength, and we're building more strength to get through whatever life brings. And I've since brought this practice to many of my couples, and I've seen the strengthening of nervous systems and emotional tolerance that it can provide. So I'd be curious if any of you might be willing to explore this as an option in your own partnerships.